Hi, everyone, and welcome to this segment where we spotlight someone who is helping us to thrive in the village. Today, we're going to be speaking with Eileen Lenson, who is an author and board-certified life coach who has spent her 30-year career as a psychotherapist working with individuals and helping them to develop coping and resilience skills during times of adversity or stress. Today, we're going to be talking about one substantial aspect of those resilience skills, and that aspect is going to be perspective. So, hi, Eileen, how are you? Welcome. I'm so happy to see you today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here with you today. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's just jump right in because perspective is a very interesting topic, because I think when we think of perspective, we just kind of think of maybe it's a point of view or how we feel about something. But I don't think we always understand how instrumental it can be in influencing our well-being, and particularly our well-being regarding stress or adversity. So could you give us perhaps maybe a broader understanding of how we should feel about perspective and how important it can be to our good health, mental health?
You're right about that, but actually it is something that benefits our physical health as well as our mental health. So you were going in that correct direction there. And you're right. Sometimes I think we just don't give enough thought to what perspective is and how we can use it to help us really get beyond pain. Basically, the definition of perspective is it's the story that we create in our heads about something based on our beliefs, our attitudes, our experiences. And interestingly enough, we start establishing perspectives sometimes before we even lift the head off the pillow in the morning, such as we hear it raining or we hear an argument going on, and we start to develop some ideas about that situation. And yet we tend to, it's happening instinctively, but we don't tend to think about the impact that it's going to have on how we think about a situation and how we feel about it. But the good news is that because it's completely subjective, we have the ability to influence and change that perspective. And that's what's going to help us in times of adversity, because then we can broaden our perspective, which allows us to understand the situation better. It will help when we understand the situation better. It helps in our decision-making process. And then we're going to have more options on how to get to the other side of adversity. It's not easy. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I was when you say broaden, that's something that we're taking in more information, and we're allowing ourselves to know more about something. And will that allow us to maybe expand or even shift our perspective? I mean, change our minds a little bit, think a little bit differently about something. Was that what broadening our perspective will lead us to?
Absolutely, because sometimes by broadening our perspectives, first we have to put our own ideas on ice, even temporarily, and allow ourselves to be open so that we can push past stereotypes or expectations or biases that we have and consider something else. And I think if we couldn't have some of these shifts that you just mentioned and broadening our perspectives, I think life would be pretty miserable, because we wouldn't know our struggles wouldn't be able to be reduced. Sometimes even just these slight shifts in thinking can change our perspective in something and how we interpret it. Think about it this way. How in the world would businesses push forward in life if they didn't change their perspectives or broaden it and make slight shifts? Or where would the diplomacy be for diplomats if they couldn't broaden their perspectives? And any married couple is going to be able to tell you that, well, I, for one, know that my marriage works because my husband broadens his perspective and takes in my considerations. But also then think about inventions. One of my favorites is Edison. We all know Edison. Thomas Edison created the light bulb, and well, that's what he's. There were other people that are involved with it, but he got the recognition for it.
Some would disagree.
Well, he bought the patents from other people.
Right.
But it is documented that
Yes.
he experienced 1,000 different perspectives in getting to that creation. And so he didn't dwell on the 999 failures. Instead, he took what he learned. He was able to shift slightly in all these areas, shift instead and pivot his thinking and then explore new options. What that did for him is it reduced his struggles that he was having in this, gave him success, and he changed the world. And that's what broadening our perspective and making these slight shifts does for us. It helps us broaden and save our world.
So are you saying that, similar to Edison's experience of minimizing the negative and focusing on the positive, if we change our perspective or shift our perspective, are we going to be more in control of our lives because we now can think about things differently?
Absolutely. In fact, it's going to pay off in spades for us because that will help us power through those challenging times that we're having. And sometimes can even mean the difference between good and bad mental health, or success and lack of success at getting through that adversity as we wanted.
Is this kind of when we hear terms like self-defeating and things like that, that we tell ourselves that story and we can actually defeat ourselves by telling a different story that's negative, and if we focused on the positive, then maybe we would be better off?
But you make a good point there, Cyndee, because why would we do that if it appears, the way you say it, it sounds self-defeating, and it is self-defeating, but it takes a lot of risk to step outside of our comfort zone,
right,
and consider other information, particularly at a time when we're under stress. So it's understandable that's happening. Sometimes if we can look back in our lives and see a time when we did step out of that comfort zone and find some of that success, then we're able to pull on that again and move forward.
Yes, I think that perspective is not new to us. I think if we were to go in another direction, we would go back to our very beginnings and find that perspective was kind of a survival mechanism. When we think in terms of telling ourselves a story about something, if we tell ourselves a story that this is danger or this is a hazard or something like that, perspective has always been there with us and it lives inside of us. So it's nothing new to the human condition.
No, it's something we take in automatically and create, and it's based on our history, our judgments, our beliefs, our values, certainly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you were to you're just telling us a little bit about, the benefits of this. Do you have some tips or some different techniques that we might, just kind of think about and be mindful of and practice in our daily life to increase our ability to broaden our perspective?
Well, yeah. One thing that comes to mind right now is to think about reducing interpersonal conflicts. There's a lot of tension outside right now. And sometimes I think what happens is if we can think about broadening our perspectives, and that will help us, even making some of those slight shifts we talked about, such as really being able to hear the other person that we're communicating with and listen to their words, listen to their emotions. And that's called empathy. That's when we're walking in someone else's shoes. When we do that, the other guy is going to feel validated because he feels heard, he'll be less defensive. And that's paramount then because if the other person's defensive, then they're not listening to us, and because they're preparing their defense. So if the other person can feel validated and not defensive, then they're going to be more open to what we have to say. And then we can move towards, if the defensiveness is removed, it can move us towards maybe better managing the situation, even if we don't come up with a positive resolution. So basically, that's an effective way to deal with it. It's acknowledging the issue and focusing on what we can do to bring about success.
So in our daily lives, working to think a little bit more about the other person's point of view, how they might have come to that story that they're telling themselves, what in their life, what in their belief system has led them to that, then we might be able to think a little bit differently and be able to communicate with them. I think a lot of times we don't communicate, and think of how we could broaden our perspectives if we find out more about how the other person is feeling and why they're feeling that way. But sometimes we don't want to do that.
Yeah, I think I tell my clients sometimes be a little more stupid. In other words,
What?
what it means is when you're encountering someone, don't make an assumption that you know. There might be
Right.
a cultural difference, for example, and we're making a judgment based on our life experiences. And so ask a question, be curious. I'm wondering why this is happening. Can you share more with me about that? And that will help us. But what we're doing with that is we are facing the problem and we're working on a solution and moving forward. And that's what we want to do when we have an issue in adversity and are going to try to broaden our perspective.
Well, I think it sounds like it would make not only our own lives better, but it would make the world around us a little bit better too, to have people, as you say, being a little bit more curious about the thoughts and beliefs of other people and in a non-judgmental way, and to soften our perspective, at least, if not completely change it. So I want to thank you again for being with us, Eileen. We have a couple of more topics to cover in the future, and these are all coming out of your wonderful book that we will show that has so much content in it to help us develop these skills, everyday skills, but also skills that will get us through adverse times and difficult, stressful times. So we thank you so much for being with us again. And we want to thank everyone else for tuning in. We appreciate that you watch our Thrive videos, and you can find the link to the Thrive videos on Village Television, YouTube, Thrive. So thank you so much, and we will see you next time. And we want everyone out there to take good care.